like I said, yeah, a cube for a pair of glasses, right? So they seem like they're different, but the value in the eyes of the people who are doing the exchange, it's like, it's important to me. The other person says it's important to me, you know, that's the way it is. So when you're making a sacrifice, there's an exchange. The other thing about a sacrifice is that it is deliberate. It's not a casual exchange. You think it through before you make it. You're thinking, okay, you're doing calculations, you know, the way they say it in the investment space, where they say, oh, you have to take calculated risk and all of that. It's like that. You're calculating what's the pro, what's the con. I had a conversation with someone recently, and the person was like, well, you have to weigh the pros and the cons, you know. So that's what is involved when you're making a sacrifice. You're thinking, what am I giving? What am I getting? What's going to be the downside? What's the short term? Some people will even be telling you what's the short term gain, what's the long term gain, benefits. You know, you're comparing all those things because there's a deliberate exchange going on whenever you make a sacrifice. Now, the other thing about sacrifice, like I said earlier, is that it requires something of value. You don't give something that does not have value to gain something of value. There must be something that is important. There's something that is key going on there. So it's like something of value. So I wear glasses. So for me, this pair of glasses is something of value for me. I want this Rubik's Cube. It's something of value to that person. But for me to be making that sacrifice at that time, that thing that I want in return must have greater value for me. For me to be able to say, okay, I'm giving up this pair of glasses I'm wearing or another one that I have, I'm getting something better. It can't be less. You don't make a sacrifice for something that is less, has a lesser value. That's a value that is less. I don't want to use the wrong grammar. You don't do that kind of exchange. It's usually more, or you're giving up outcomes that you're receiving now for something that will give you a more desirable outcome. So whenever you are in that space of giving a sacrifice or doing a trade-off, there's something that is going on deliberately. There's something that you're getting in exchange, and usually it is more. Now, the other thing about a sacrifice, the point of sacrifice is that you will feel it. You will feel that you gave up something. It's not something that's like, okay, like someone that has 10 million, for example. If the person gives 500,000 from that 10 million, that's not much of a sacrifice. That's just like, okay, just give something. When you give a sacrifice, you feel it. It's like it's a dig deep into who you are, your resources, your treasures, your time, your energy. You feel it. When you're making a sacrifice, you will feel it. It has an impact on you. It leaves you feeling like, I gave up something important. That is involved in the place of sacrifice. Okay. Now, for many of us, when we do make these sacrifices, it's also kind of scary. It is scary because there's a bit of uncertainty, because you're like, I know my glasses, I know what it does for me. I see better with it. I know where I keep it. I know what it's doing for me. This Rubik's Cube, it's looking the way it's looking. Am I sure I'm going to have, is it going to be soft when I turn it around? Am I going to be able to actually close up the colors on the same side like I should? You're asking yourself that because you're uncertain. So you're stepping out in faith. You're stepping out not sure. So most times we're kind of scared when we take those steps. But what I want us to know, even though I'm mentioning all these things about sacrifices, is this: a sacrifice, when we make it with the right intention, always jumpstarts us to a change. You never remain the same after you've made the sacrifice. There's always an experience for more. There's always an experience or an inflow of a better version coming to you as a result of the sacrifice. So the way I want to put it is this: beyond your point of sacrifice is the more you desire. The more you want, the better you want to achieve is beyond a point of sacrifice. And that's why we titled today's episode Crossroads and Sacrifices. Because it is at that point where we get to and we are like, oh my goodness, do I go ahead? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Do I go back? But beyond that point, that decision point that we need to take and make that sacrifice of letting go of where we are coming from, or what we are used to, or what we are familiar with, or what we are comfortable with, is the better version of ourselves or whatever we've been experiencing. And so, for example, what comes to mind for me was the sacrifice that I feel that one of the biggest sacrifices I made way back years ago was when I started having a restlessness on my inside, and I wanted to experience fulfillment. I wanted to add more value to people. I didn't even know there was anything like coaching or mentoring or facilitating sessions like this, but I wanted to do more. And at that time I was working in the bank and I was doing, HR function in the bank, but it was good for me and the financial reward was quite good for us also as a family. But I had to come to a point where I had to tell myself, is this the long-term vision I see of myself? And I couldn't connect with it. So the sacrifice I made then was giving up that short-term gain, that short-term financial gain that was coming for me for the long-term fulfillment I was eventually going to connect with. That is what I would say was one of the biggest sacrifices I've ever made in my life.